Now, Cole Hastings recently made his video, "The Age of the Grift is Officially Over." Now, for those who are unaware, grifter is someone who engages in petty or small scale swindling. Now, we're seeing this grifting on larger and larger scales, and I truly don't believe it's going away. In fact, people are getting right here swindled out of their money through fraud. And that's where the uneven exchange of value comes from a grifter. They offer you something with a non-equal exchange of your money, and oftentimes can turn into fraud. So let's get into this video and see what he's talking about.
What are the top 3 things that people you guide and coach and follow you on social media come to you for and say their number 1 issue is?
Well, for men, they do suffer from a lot of infidelity with the women that are cheating on the men.
This is Sadia Khan, a self-proclaimed licensed psychologist who charges hundreds of dollars an hour for her therapy services. After her podcast clips blew up on every short-form app, she amassed millions of followers and grew to pretty high levels of fame. But then, people started digging. It began with short-tempered replies in the comments of her videos. Then she was accused of being a fraudulent therapist. And just a few days ago, Abba and Preach made a video proving she forged her master's degree in psychology.
So it especially comes in the case of like psychology and things that are accredited. It's really weird to me that people are trying to actually deceive their audience, their viewership, and their overall public perception, their personal branding, right? Because when you come to the market to the point of where you're forging documents, I mean, let's just use common sense here. You're obviously operating in a form of fraud. So this level of grift is only going to get, worse over time, especially, with the advent of AI and all of these extra services where you have someone who's literally forging their own, psychology degree or documentation.
This fake Photoshop degree of a master's was on her website. It has no date. When do you ever see a degree with no date of issue?
No date.
Do you see the name? That is a clearly photoshopped on top of this degree.
There's plenty of other claims made in that video, like how she allegedly slept with a married man, and apparently she was charging like $8,000 for her consultation services, to which she later denied, but we don't even need to get into all of that.
$8,000 for consultation services. We're gonna stamp that. I don't think that there's this level of like financial deception. It's clearly at an all-time highs, but my fear is that it's truly gonna get worse because you see someone like that making $8,000 per consultation. There's clearly going to be someone out there who's like, man, I'll just do that for $1,000 per consultation. And so we're going to have this overall froth of deception online.
To conclude that this is some pretty high-scale grifting at work. This is what happens when you try to be someone you're not in the digital age. Eventually, someone is going to do their due diligence, find out the truth, and tarnish your reputation.
We've made so many videos. The entire internet is everyone just doing this whole weird fake it till you make it concept where just because you're able to have this fake perception of Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is, you have a false perception on the back end. You live with your mom. There's all of these concepts that just because you're saying something to a camera doesn't mean, just on this channel, all we do is critically think. We look through what's currently happening and we question. There shouldn't be an aspect like if she were a, licensed psychologist, then there shouldn't be an issue of someone questioning, right? The same thing where if a doctor has their degree on the wall, it shouldn't be an ask of where did you go to college? That shouldn't be offending anybody, right?
I think it's reaching a point where grifters will never be able to thrive in the way they used to even a decade ago. Why? Because for better or worse, the younger generations trust no one. So in this video, I'll explain how propaganda and grifting has changed, why boomers were more willing to be lied to, and what I believe is the next evolution of social media and authenticity. Take a look at this advert.
So it's also weird, right? Because while yes, back in the day, they didn't have access to as much information today, right? All of the internet is at our fingertips. It doesn't mean people use it. Right? We have as much information as possible, and yet people will still pay for convenience. It's always been the case, right? People still get catfished today. People will, in the search of love, in the search of money, in the search of religion, in the search of fame, there are always going to be people that deceptively try to take advantage of someone else.
Advertisement. Notice how ridiculous it sounds? Around the 1930s, cigarette companies would dress models up in white coats and pose them as a throat doctor. They convinced the general public that cigarettes were making you cough, not because they were bad for your health, but because they had too much dust, germs, or not enough menthol in them. Smoke a fresh cigarette and more doctors smoke Camels than any other brand were just some of the many misleading advertisements being displayed back then. Now, obviously, this wasn't a new phenomenon. The term snake oil salesman originated in the 19th century when shady salesmen created their own knockoff tonics out of alcohol, cocaine, and opium and claimed the drink could treat arthritis and
Man, when you're talking about putting cocaine and stuff and just giving it to everybody, but when you see something like this, right? It's a tale as old as time. If someone has money, people will try to take advantage of that audience.
Soothe sore muscles. And people have been scamming other people with fake products and credentials for centuries. But what separates even the 1950s from now is simple. It was much more easier to get away with it. The average person had very little sources for inside information and truth during this time. There was the newspaper, the TV, and if you actually went the extra mile, you could pick up books related to something you questioned. Contrast that with today, and while there is a greater potential for information overload, we now have a much greater capacity to form our own opinions without being indoctrinated into some political ideology. Yes, echo chambers are rampant online, but it doesn't take nearly as much effort in searching to discern the nuance and get an objective view on things. For instance, you go to a site like Ground News and you can see that
That's a smooth advert. Did you guys notice that? Man, the moment I saw this QR code, I got questions. So Ground News is okay. Let's skip through that. We got that premium
being shown to you in the news or who you surrounded yourself with the most. And in the case of cigarettes, if your family smoked cigs and the culture saw it as normal, it didn't even matter if it was bad. Everyone was going to keep doing it. This embodies the mindset of the mid to late 20th century American. Not only was it more difficult to see beyond the grifts, but also even if you knew you were being lied to, it didn't matter all that much. Why? Because the system that was lying to you was still giving you a favorable life outcome.
So I don't know about you guys, but whenever you are on your feed, everything's tailored to you, right? I'll try and go and clear it and make sure that I'm, I'll click not interested on things, but everything's tailored to you. So if you want to be lied to, you're going to see someone lying to you, right? We've made videos talking about how credit repair agencies will literally lie to you and say that they can give you a perfect 800 when we know on the back end all that they're doing is falsifying police documents and creating fraudulent like actions based under your name. So when we see something like this, we have to just call it out, right? And we have these devices right in our pockets, these smartphones that if you want to ask the question, you have to search for it. And unfortunately, the whole world is, or the whole online world is this weird echo chamber because you're only going to want to continue to see what you see.
The push for suburban life in the 50s and 70s is a great example of this. In the 1950s, developers like William Levitt, often called the king of suburbia, built mass-produced neighborhoods called Levitt towns that sold homes with convenience and community at the forefront. Ads for these homes frequently featured smiling, homogenous families and the promise of a peaceful, prosperous life in the suburbs. The imagery of the happy, idealistic nuclear family with no blemishes was often far from the reality of suburban living, with abusive relationships, urban sprawl, and annoying commutes.
When you have this weird American dream concept, it's that everyone has this picture perfect life when we know that's not the case, right? When you go to online and we see all of this perfect imagery, you see the life of the Kardashians, but at the same time, you understand that, I don't know, they have a drama TV show. I would imagine it's just filled with problems. And it's this weird parasocial relationship where you see the problems, but you don't self-identify with them and you live your own life and you are miserable. But you go back directly to Instagram or social media or whatever it is to try to escape it, but understanding that you're still living into that. So that's where the whole grifting comes into play, right? Because we've seen the Andrew Tate who lied to a large amount of the audience about what's happening. And in that aspect, you have to understand what's happening. The reason why they're able to lie, get away with it, it's because no one cares legally, right? The government isn't willing to currently or go after or punish someone because of that in the current state, right? If every moment someone were to create a meme coin and rug pull their audience, they were held accountable every time, there wouldn't be any more rug pulls, right? So just because someone gets away with it doesn't mean that it's legal in the first place.
Mutes also being a part of that deal, and the perfect vibes of these ads certainly felt fake. But the people didn't care, because what they got in return, stability and community, was far worth the price of being propagandized. In 1970, the average US home cost approximately 3.5 times the household's yearly income. That means you only had to work an average salary job for 3.5 years to afford a home. And that job, it came with its own sort of grift, loyalty benefits. Corporations advertised lifelong careers with pensions and retirement security, and in many cases, they actually got it. In other words, even if they knew they were being lied to, the propagandizers were giving the average person enough to shut up, keep their head down, and keep working. And while all this was happening, grifters were making waves left and right, and sometimes...
Yeah, there's this weird aspect that over time, people are getting less and less, and it's weird that a lot more people aren't asking questions, or I don't see it. It's not perceived. There should be more independent critical thinkers in this overall process of not having it, right? People see that unemployment is supposed to be super low, but they don't feel it. People see that interest rates are supposed to feel low, but inflation's at an all-time high, right? There's all of these concepts, and there's going to be this weird detachment. That's why I try to make this channel to specifically talk about it, of debt, right? There's this weird detachment of, well, I have 100K in debt. It doesn't matter, right? And that's a society that you don't want to have, because people will continuously have these mountains of fires behind them, but they're just so burnt out with the overall problems of life that they stop caring about it.
Sometimes they were even getting exposed. Think about the oil companies in the 70s running tearjerker ads about pollution, literally blaming consumers for litter while they kept pumping out plastics. Or drug companies selling Valium as the cure for suburban stress while creating mass addiction. These were lies hidden in plain sight, but the only people really revolting against them were seen as the hippies or the outcasts. Now let's contrast all of this with the world that Gen Z inherited. The average home now costs 5 times the average salary in most cities. As a result, only about 3% of...
And this is it, right? Because it's easier to sell the dream to those who don't truly understand what the dream is. There was an older gentleman that I watched. He was a postal delivery, and he was saying people don't understand what struggling through life is, and they see these guys flexing in Miami and just assume that that's supposed to be normal. That's not. What's assumed to be normal is that you work, build up competence in some facets, so you have, you get compensated in that, or you work for your house, you work for these aspects. I mean, just think of the life of a farmer. The moment he doesn't wake up and tend to his crops, or tend to his field, or tend to his animals, those perish, right? So you have to work towards something. And the better that we are in this society of understanding that everyone needs to feel fulfilled, or understand a concept of fulfillment, the better we are, right? Because yes, boomers had it easier in a perception of what we have today, but they didn't have the access, the means, and all of these different facets of life of which that we do have today. But now that we have this overwhelming information overload, specifically on our smartphones, specifically on our social media, specifically when we walk out the house, we're bombarded with advertisements and billboards, but they didn't have that back in the day. So understand that there's a give and a take. Today, you can ask ChatGPT to write your 92-page PhD dissertation, but back in the day, you had to go to the library. But again, back in the day, there wasn't, as much competition of what you're trying to do, but the risks were completely, there still. Even today, everyone wants to be a streamer, not knowing all of the work that goes behind it, because they see or have a self-perception of just that 1% survivorship bias.
Of all home buyers are Gen Z. Among 27-year-olds, only 32.6% of Gen Zers owned their home in 2024, compared to 38.4% of Gen Xers and 40.5% of boomers at the same age. Personal debt for Gen Z averages over $94,000.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the average debt per generation. Gen Z is maxed out. This is a weird one, right? Because we're getting, I'm going to guess you're going to have student like debt included into this, but you're not getting that juice isn't worth the squeeze as once it was, right? Because now anyone who goes to the market of employment needs to have this 4-year degree, regardless of what it's in. And the college, the institutions are only charging more over time. And it's just this endless cycle of rat racing.
With credit card debt particularly common. And job security? I mean, it barely exists anymore. In 1 minute, you could be replaced because the talent pool is so competitive and it's so easy to apply to thousands of jobs in a day thanks to internet job postings. And now we're being fed the idea that the only way out is to participate in the gig economy of isolation. I'll let this clip of Tim Dillon, which largely inspired the making of this video, explain it better.
Wait, you're lying to us and I can't own a house? I can barely have a job? I have to be forced into the gig economy? I get to deliver burritos? And
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Like there's this forced perception of the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So what is that going to do? It's going to disconnect the average consumer, the average citizen, the average person from just even participating, right? They're not going to want to do anything. Why would I want to? You want me to work 50 hours a week just to barely pay my bills? Like that concept can't, come to fruition.
I have to listen to this bullshit, and I have to pretend that this is all real, and I can't afford frozen yogurt with my girlfriend, and I have to go along with this horse shit, and I have nothing and no money for it. If you're doing something, you want to get something out of it. If you are going to delude yourself and believe the bullshit on the news, you have to get a little bit out of it. We're asking people to believe all of this stuff and telling them, and the reward for that, okay, is to deliver a Caesar salad to someone.
But taking away the stability and success that was more guaranteed with hard work was just the start. Gen Z lives on this thing which gives you access to any information you want, if you know where to look. Now let's be honest, the internet is heavily regulated at this point. What you can and can't post on social media is determined by these big corporations. But despite that, enough slips through the cracks and gets exposed about the government that Gen Z's trust in any big...
I don't even think that it's any concept that slips through the crack. I think at this point, specifically when it comes to information that you can go out and receive, it's all going to be dependent on if you foster that echo chamber for yourself. What I try to do is every Sunday I'll go through and I'll click not interested on things that I'm truly not interested on. I'll clear my browse feed and I'll try to ensure that this week is only going to be self-improvement, self-powerment, job improvement conversations that are happening. Anything that doesn't, pertain to that, even sports are going to be gone. So it's like one of those things that, what does your echo chamber say about you? Everyone has an echo chamber. Everyone, whether you want to believe or not, our feeds all look different. So are you someone who constantly goes online for sports? Okay, now you're fulfilling yourself with this entertainment. Are you someone who's constantly going online to watch tutorials or to seek out information or something specific like that? Okay, well, now you're gonna have that curated feed. Or are you someone who clearly cares about brain rot and just being mind numb for the next 4 hours? Right? Because that's essentially what's happening when you go on social media, when you go on TikTok. We have to understand what the concept is. Even though all of this is on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever you're watching this on, these platforms can truly be what you want them to be. And it's only up to us to truly market it for ourselves.
Big corporations became rightly destroyed. In fact, the internet is where the younger generations first found out about shareholder primacy, maximizing profits, and the dissolution of the middle class in videos just like this one. And that means nobody can hide.
Now he says that, but everyone has always known that the big man is, the boss is taking the money, right? That concept isn't lost on anyone. It's not a common thing for Gen Z to finally say that there shouldn't be, a multi-trillionaire conversation. It's always been a conversation. It's just been now I'm finally getting truly nothing for it. People aren't no longer working paycheck to paycheck. People are working debt to debt. And once that, flips, now we're having the conversation of everyone's in debt, so therefore no one cares.
Results: a 2023 Gallup survey found that few Gen Z ages 12 to 26 trust the news, Congress, the presidency, or big tech, with only 1 in 6 or fewer having a great deal or quite a lot of trust in each. Fewer than 25% trust the Supreme Court or the criminal justice system. Only 19% of youth trust social media companies. As of spring 2024, only 22% of US adults trust the federal government.
I think this overall states that people trust people to be people. Whether this is their selfish desires, their individualistic selfish desires, right? All of this is unfortunate because we know the government is one of the worst financial resource holders, right? It's going to spend money regardless of how you believe it's supposed to hold it. The boss in whatever position is only going to care for themselves. All of these concepts are going to be lost, but having numbers this low is something that has more to say specifically about the positions that there currently are rather than the actual positions that should be, right? Like you have in California, there's a homelessness problem. California has put $2 billion or multiples of billions of dollars towards this homelessness problem. And yet there seems to be perceived no end result from that. So now people have spent $2 billion because the people paid their taxes and raised capital. And however, the problem's not solved, or even the perception of the problem hasn't been solved, right? And if anything, it's only looked to be worse. So when you see all of the red tape that they say that they're trying to cross, but you have no, if you were to give someone $100 to mow your grass and your grass is still just as bad, you wouldn't care all of the problems that they're telling you are wrong with the lawnmower. You would expect some form of result somewhere for them to point to say that, okay, my money's being well spent. But in this case, the numbers are only at scale larger.
To do the right thing most of the time, one of the lowest levels in decades. The only institutional exception to all of this is something that can be objectively measured and repeated, which is science. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Cole, even though Gen Z has high distrust in big institutions and is often overly skeptical, grifting has still been wildly popular online. And to that, I would say, yes, it has had its moments. I've already gone into depth about the early days of the self-help industry online, which is a good example of this. In many ways, it was actually a resurgence of grifting, reaching heights like never before. Because while grifting was only reserved to the big corporations before, now all you needed was extreme conviction, confidence, a few graphs showing your sales, and some professional lighting to play yourself off.
Here, let me go back.
Before, now all you needed was extreme conviction, confidence, a few graphs showing your sales.
All you need is a chart with your Shopify store falsified of making money. All you need is your AdSense falsified of making money. All you need is false, right? It's the whole fake it till you make it concept of just because someone sees something, they don't ask the questions. Let's just use this one image, right? This one thing, total sales, 73 orders. I will see something like this and immediately assume how much are people paying for whatever product you're selling. You're truly telling me that people are paying multiple hundreds to multiple thousands per shopping cart. What are you selling? And someone like, no, I just sell high ticket shirts. And I can't publicly perceive that. I can't Google your merchandise. I can't, like, what are you talking about? And I'll be called as like, oh, I'm just jealous. But no, on this channel, I don't care. I pocket watch. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask questions. When you see something, say something, right? Because if it sounds too good to be true, it actually is.
Sales and some professional lighting to play yourself off as an expert in any given field. When a lot of Gen Z was younger and not yet aware of how much they got gypped of wealth and stability compared to previous generations, grifters actually kind of thrived online. This peaked around 2020 when everybody was lonely and looking for answers to their problems they could no longer escape through busy work or friends. It's why Andrew Tate, a dude who built his fortune on cam girls, was able to sell so much of his $50 a month Discord group to young impressionable teens. It's also why crypto.
It's such a sad reality that that's exactly what it was. Someone's just lying for $50 a month, but at scale, 200,000 people, $50 a month, you're a multimillionaire, and then you're able to continuously, falsify this weird perception. You get other people involved, and you didn't help anyone in the community. And if you did, it's a very select percentage. It's a very small percentage of people who are actually helped. And out of the small, it's a full, survivorship bias. And when you actually call it out, it's the what about game. Well, what about college? We're not talking about college. And in fact, I've made videos specifically talking about how to take advantage of college situations. Use Sophia, use study.com, minimize your credit requirements, go to a state or a community college, just check the box. Not everyone's going to UCLA and getting a political science degree. If you go to college, get a beneficial degree. And if you get a non-beneficial degree, it's your fault. Don't be stupid when we have all of the means of information in front of us.
Had its little rise to popularity in 2021. Crypto felt like a way to escape the centralization and authority of an untrustworthy government, a way to take the power from them and bring it back to the people. But in the end, it got uprooted by desperate con artists looking to make money by promoting meme coins and quickly rug pulling them after. Logan Paul's CryptoZoo is a great adjacent example of this.
Now, if you invested in CryptoZoo, let's understand what crypto is, right? Crypto is a younger generation's form of fast money. If it was guaranteed overnight, crypto no longer had a financial incentive. The only people would actually care would probably be, technicians and software developers and other, right, IT members. But outside of that, no one would care. Because today, crypto is the whole, I want, I can double X my money. Just in that one sentence alone is a form of grift. Right? And promising or trying to guarantee someone a return specifically in crypto or any of these risky investments, I mean, that's not worth it, because if you're on a website called pump.fun, truly there for financial return, I mean, you're going to find yourself losing all your money.
If you don't remember or aren't familiar, Logan Paul had planned on making a game called CryptoZoo where you open eggs for very ugly looking mishmashes of animals that were NFTs with real world value in the form of crypto. Millions were invested into these eggs before you could even use them. And even though Logan said dozens of times that the game was coming, even after getting exposed, it never did. And he barely refunded the people who bought into it. Of course, there is some personal responsibility on someone who trusted a cesspool rat like Logan Paul, but they're questionably.
Right. But it's like, truly what we're seeing are either you're claiming ignorance or stupidity. I mean, both are going to be bad, specifically when it comes to the case of you losing your money. But if you lose your money, you have to understand that it went towards someone else. In crypto, only a few people make it out.
Wasn't enough dirt on him yet in order to completely distrust the guy. That really depends on who you ask, though. Another industry I'm passionate about exposing lies in is the fitness industry. The fitness industry is full of fake natty grifters putting Lifetime Natural in their Instagram bio. I was more so in the fitness industry back in like 2017, 2018, and I'll tell you that grift used to last a pretty long time, like 5 years. But now if you try to do something like that, you're going to get exposed and people are not going to believe you pretty damn quickly. Prime example of this is Hussein Farhat. He went from a twig to absolutely sauced in 6 months. Blew up on social media for a few months, doubled down on his natty status, and now, because he refuses to tell the...
Now, I made a video specifically talking about Ashton Hall and how rage bait, engagement bait, whatever gets views is good. And it's unfortunate because what this means, right? Because he's claiming natural and all, he's still probably selling some supplements, some plans, some coaching, all of that process, right? I'm not too familiar with the fitness grifting space, but if you understand that any potential conversion rate, whether it be 1 million of negative views, still ends into him getting $10,000. Let's just say a million views gets them $10,000 in private consultations. So it's one of those things where as long as they're getting views, riling people up, I mean, we know Ashton Hall to be, I don't know, completely false in whatever front that we're seeing, right? It's not, whatever his entertainment videos are not real, but yet he's still making potential millions of dollars because of this false perception there's always some new viewer who ends up funneling and becomes a whale. And all you need are a few people giving up tens of thousands of dollars, of hundreds of thousands of dollars to these creators to continue the ball running. Because all they need, are a few whales, and the more views that they get still lead to a potential conversion for whales.
The truth, his reputation is ruined and his videos get destroyed with dislikes. So not only did Gen Z get the American dream stripped away from them by big institutions, but even the people who are supposed to be on their side, the everyday content creators, can't even be trusted to do the morally right thing if big money is involved. Everybody is fighting for their attention, everybody is trying to get money from them, and everything feels fake, forced, and full of ulterior motives. I'm nearly out of breath talking about.
So that's one thing that I truly believe that's why you're seeing the whole live streaming coming back. People are done. People are done with the short form brain rot. They want to see somebody. And we're gonna have these ebbs and flows, right? We're gonna have these waves of long form moments, short form moments. But at the end of the day, if you're someone who truly cares about understanding and self improving yourself, then you're going to be okay as long as you take actionable steps. Which hopefully you surround yourself in echo chambers that positively reinforce that, which this channel is. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
All the bullshit scam grifts online that Gen Z has had to go through. But now even the grifts and the propaganda from big institutions are more dystopian and Orwellian-like. Our president is using AI of himself to threaten war on Chicago. Russia's pumping out AI deepfakes and teaching chatbots to lie. And advertisements are featuring more AI-generated people, voices, and scripts. But here's the good thing that I think comes out of this. They are getting old enough and have been putting up with it long enough to no longer let the show go on. So here's what I think comes next. If big institutions know Gen Z is harder to propagandize, but they also aren't willing to make their living conditions easier, how can they win their trust again? And if traditional advertisements barely work like they used to because they feel threaded with lies and fakeness, how do you get Gen Z to participate in the economy? I know these questions don't matter to most of us, but one question that is tied.
See, this is where I don't agree with him on the grift is ending. We're literally talking about people spending thousands of dollars on shoes and Labubus and Dubai chocolate and buy now pay laters and predatory loans. We're actively seeing this. We're actively seeing, on one hand, credit card debt at an all-time high. We're seeing all of this, and it's with the younger generation. So it's not the grift is ending. It's this bubble is continuously getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And just because you don't see it, right? Because it happens. People reach out to me. I see the debt that people are underwhelming themselves with or overwhelming themselves with. It's an unfortunate reality, but people are spending money, right? We're talking about Pokemon cards. We're talking about video games. Like, the consumer, the American consumer, the Western consumer has money. And as long as the money is being spent, whether the government believes or the perception of the propaganda, I'm not sure, but the money's being spent. And I mean, let's just see next year when the new Avengers movies come out, right? Because the consumerism is at an all-time high.
To those is, how the hell do we all start trusting and cooperating with each other again? Well, the only solution I see is in the death of grifting. I'm going to let all you marketers in on a little secret, as someone who has studied Gen Z and is Gen Z themselves and understands what they do and don't like. If you want to sell something to Gen Z, or if you want to make an impact on them, you can't really lie. Their skepticism and acute senses to bullshit.
I mean, what? Right? In one breath, he talks about the fitness, the fitness guru lying, right? And that's happening today. I don't know who this guy is. But if you're telling me that the perception of lying isn't working, and then at the same time telling me it is working, I mean, come on.
Believes in what they're selling and talking about. These ads don't need fancy lighting or high budgets. In fact, they often work better if they're the opposite of that. If you want to establish trust in a generation that sees roughly 4,000 to 10,000 ads and bullshit media headlines, you have to be real. I so admire our generation's.
Now, for those of you who don't know, user-generated content is happening more and more, meaning that advertisers, marketers are paying someone like me to make a video. And there's different forms of advertisement, selling, and sprinkling subliminal marketing in there. So I think they're clearly seeing it. I'm talking about, large scale marketing and advertisement. So they understand that there's just different ways. That's all it is. We're just seeing 2025 and forward as just a different way of finding a way to grift an audience, right? Before, it literally was late night ads, to now it's just, Instagram flexing. Right? What kind of grift are we talking about?
Skepticism and ability to sniff out bullshit. If somebody wants to sell something now, or like I said, make a deep impact that is sustainable, they really can't fake what they are selling or what they're trying to say to influence people. Yes, you can still scam gullible, unintelligent people for a little while, but eventually it will come crashing down and burn and bite you in the ass, just like we saw with Sadia Khan. And does that mean grifters are going away forever?
But see, the problem with a grifter like Sadia Khan is that they still made their tens of hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And it's just like a Ponzi. But right now, I don't see any arrests happening to Sadia Khan. Her personal brand public image is gone. Okay, but there's still thousands to hundreds of people who paid 800 or $8,000 for their consultation service. So when we're only likely going to see more grifters currently, take 800 here to 8,000 there, it's still an overall overwhelming amount of grifters.
Unfortunately not. There will always be people looking to take advantage of other people's insecurities to sell them something that they don't actually need. And once technology reaches its next wave, those people will be sure to take advantage of its novelty and lack of general knowledge surrounding it to scam people. But I don't think it's going to work the way that it used to. I want you to remain skeptical when it makes sense, but also try to remain level-headed and emotionally regulated when you see something fake and propagandized that you disagree with. To make sure to weigh in all sides of an article or social media post claims before believing it. To question whether the experts online are really experts. Because if we keep doing that, then grifters will suffocate.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, as long as you understand that critically thinking, independently thinking, and questioning something should never be negative, then truly that makes sense, right? Because as long as there is someone with money, there is going to be someone trying to steal their money. As long as there is someone who is willing to buy something, there's going to be someone selling a fake product, right? We have as much tools in our pocket as, NASA scientists had decades ago, but today is still a overwhelming amount of grifts. Now, Cole is, he's done his research and he understands different sections, but I truly believe that this bubble is only going to get bigger. And I'm saying that in numbers, right? Yes, there could have been just like one Andrew Tate, but what about the Tate clones, right? What about the people false perceived from that, right? All the little coaches and the consultants that were under him that are going to now spread and potentially, harm. And these numbers are only going to get bigger and bigger. So you guys let me know down in the comments below what do you guys think, because at the end of the day, this grift is only going to get worse and we're going to see larger ones. I have a segment coming out, little teaser. It's going to be called Grift or Legit. I'm going to see, what kind of grifters are out there, what kind of legit processes are out there. And you guys let me know down in the comments below. Peace.